Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know I'm always talking about the importance of lifelong learning. Well, today we're going to dive into exactly that.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're going deep into the science of rapid skill acquisition.
Ooh, by Peter Hollins Wright.
You got it. It's all about learning new things quickly and effectively. So like how to really absorb and use new information instead of just memorizing and forgetting.
I think that's something we all struggle with, right? Like most of us were never actually taught how to learn well. We were just taught to pass tests.
Exactly. It's all about memorization, not real learning.
Right.
And Hollins actually talks about that right at the beginning of the book. He says, the skill of regurgitating information does not serve us well in the real world.
It's true. It's like we're stuck in this information overload, but not really learning.
Yeah, and that's where rapid skill acquisition comes in. Like, how can we actually learn new skills that stick?
And learn them fast.
Yeah. So is there a magic formula?
Well, not exactly magic, but there are definitely strategies that can make a huge difference. And it all starts with choosing the right skills to focus on.
Okay, step one, choose the right skill.
Right.
Got it. But like, how do I know which skills are the right ones for me?
Well, you got to think about your goal.
Goals.
Yeah, like your personal and professional goals. What skills would help you achieve them? Or what skills would just make you happier?
Okay, so not just picking up a random skill, but something that actually matters to me.
Exactly. Like what would make your life easier or more interesting? Those are the skills worth investing in.
So instead of like just doing something because it's trendy, I should focus on skills that actually align with what I want to achieve.
Yes. And don't forget about the 80-20 principle.
Oh, right, the 80-20 principle. So that applies to skills too.
Absolutely. You don't have to master everything. Focus on those core skills that'll give you the biggest results.
So like, if I'm learning web development, I don't need to learn every single programming language out there.
Nope. Focus on the ones that are most relevant to what you want to build.
Okay, makes sense. So choose the right skills. Check. What's next?
Next is deconstruction.
Deconstruction. Okay, that sounds kind of intense. What does that mean in terms of learning?
Imagine trying to eat a whole cake in one bite.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Right. You'd cut it into smaller slices.
Makes sense.
Deconstructing a skill is the same thing. You break down a big, overwhelming skill into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So instead of tackling this huge, scary skill, I break it down into bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. And it makes learning way less intimidating, too. You're not facing this giant mountain, just a series of smaller hills.
I like the sound of that. The book gives some examples, right?
Yeah. It's like if you were learning German, you could start with the 300 most commonly used words instead of trying to memorize the whole dictionary.
Oh, that's smart. Or like for guitar, I could focus on the basic chords first before trying to learn crazy solos.
Exactly. You get the idea.
Okay, so I've chosen my skill and deconstructed it. What's next? The actual learning part.
Exactly. And that's where deliberate practice comes in.
Deliberate practice.
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but not really sure what it means.
It's more than just like mindlessly repeating something over and over.
Right. It has to be more focused.
I got it. It's about pushing yourself, finding your weaknesses, and working specifically on those areas that need the most improvement.
So can you give an example, like how would someone apply this to learning to code?
Okay, well, there's this great story in the book about this computer science professor who aced this super difficult math class. And he did it using deliberate practice.
Wow, really? Like how?
He spent hours outside of class, like really dissecting the logic, working through the problems until he truly understood everything.
Wow. Dedication. But I guess it paid off. So it's not just about how much time I spend practicing, but how I use that time.
Right. Deliberate practice is all about quality over quantity. It's being fully engaged, focusing on those weaknesses and really striving to improve.
So if I'm learning to code, instead of just like copying code from tutorials, I should be challenging myself to actually understand it and write it from scratch.
Yes. And don't be afraid to ask for feedback too.
Okay, I can do that. Deliberate practice. Got it. So we've got choosing the right skills, deconstructing them, and then practicing deliberately. What else is there?
There's more.
Really?
Yeah. There are specific techniques within deliberate practice that can take your learning to the next level.
Okay, tell me everything. I'm ready to become a learning ninja.
Okay, so one technique is called interleaving. It's basically the idea that switching between different skills or concepts during a study session can actually be more effective.
Wait, I always thought it was better to like master one thing before moving on to the next.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, right? But think of it like cross-training for your brain. When you interleave, you're making your brain work harder to retrieve and apply different types of knowledge.
So it's like a more diverse workout for my brain.
Exactly. And that leads to deeper understanding and better retention.
Okay, that's interesting. So instead of spending 3 hours straight just practicing guitar chords, I should maybe switch between chords, scales, and even some music theory.
You got it. Mix it up. And that brings us to another powerful technique, spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition. Okay, that rings a bell. Remind me what that is again.
So spaced repetition is all about reviewing information at increasing intervals. Instead of cramming everything in one go, you space out your study sessions and gradually increase the time between reviews.
Right. So it's like I don't have to cram everything in one sitting, which is good because I can never seem to find a huge chunk of time for anything these days.
Exactly. And it's actually more effective for learning and memory in the long run.
The book even says something about that, right?
It does. Holland says that 5 minutes a day is far superior to learning and memory than an hour a week.
Wow. Okay, that's really good to know. So like if I'm trying to learn Spanish, I should just review my flashcards for a few minutes every day instead of waiting until Sunday night to cram.
You got it. It's all about consistency and playing into how our brains naturally forget things. By reviewing just as you're about to forget, you reinforce that memory.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got deliberate practice, interleaving, and spaced repetition, all great techniques. But we've been talking a lot about the actual practice itself. What about the environment I'm learning in? Does that matter?
Environment is super important. Both your social surroundings and your physical space can have a huge impact on your learning.
I know, I definitely get distracted easily if my workspace is cluttered. Never really thought about how my social circle might play into it, though.
It can make a big difference. The book talks about the study about weight gain and social networks. And get this, they found that people were more likely to gain weight if their friends gained weight, even if they lived far apart.
Wow, that's wild. I guess we really are influenced by the people around us.
We are. So surround yourself with people who support your learning goals. Find mentors, join communities, anything that inspires you to grow.
So like finding a mentor or a study group could really help me stay motivated and accountable.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of your physical environment. Make sure your workspace is actually conducive to learning. Good lighting, minimal distractions, and a comfortable setup can make a huge difference.
Okay, so no more studying on the couch with the TV on in the background.
Exactly. Create a space that helps you focus and concentrate. Like if you want to learn guitar, keep it out where you see it every day. If you're trying to learn a new language, put those flashcards somewhere you'll bump into them all the time. Make it easy to engage with the material.
I like that. It's like setting myself up for success by designing my environment in a way that supports my goals. Okay, so environment matters. Got it. But even with the best environment and techniques, I know there will be times when I struggle with, the mental side of things. Like, what are some key mindset shifts I need to embrace to be successful?
Yes, the mental game is so important. One of the biggest shifts is all about managing your expectations.
Oh, expectations. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of setting unrealistic expectations. Like, I'll think I can pick something up super quickly and then get discouraged when I don't.
It happens to all of us. We're constantly bombarded with messages about learning anything in 24 hours and becoming an expert overnight. But the reality is, learning takes time and effort. Hollins even suggests that it takes about 25 hours to become proficient in a new skill.
25 hours. Okay, that seems way more manageable than, instant expertise.
Right. It's about embracing the process, celebrating those small victories, and understanding that mastery doesn't happen overnight. And speaking of embracing the process, we need to talk about confusion endurance.
Confusion endurance. Okay, we touched on that briefly earlier. Why should I embrace feeling confused?
Well, confusion is often a sign that we're pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone, right? It means we're stretching our mental muscles and grappling with new concepts.
So instead of seeing confusion as a bad thing, I should view it as a signal that I'm actually learning.
Exactly. It's a natural part of the process. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it.
Okay, I can try that. It's like confusion is a challenge, not a roadblock. What are some things I can do to build that confusion endurance?
One thing you can do is simply acknowledge that feeling confused is okay. Tell yourself it's normal to feel this way. And remember, you're not alone. Everyone feels confused when they're learning something new.
It's true. It's true. Sometimes it feels like everyone else just gets things so easily.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that comparison trap, but everyone learns at their own pace.
That's a good reminder.
And another thing that can help is to break down those complex tasks that are causing you to feel confused into smaller, more manageable steps.
Oh, so it's like using deconstruction not just for organizing my learning, but for managing my mindset too.
Exactly. When you tackle those smaller pieces, you're not only making the task less intimidating, but you're also creating more opportunities for those small wins that can help boost your confidence and keep you motivated.
I love that. Small wins.
Yes, they're so important. But let's be real, there will also be times when you hit a wall, those moments when you feel stuck and like you're not making any progress.
Oh, I know those moments all too well. What do I do when that happens?
Well, those plateaus are a normal part of the learning process, and that's where the beginner's mindset comes in.
Ah, yes, the beginner's mindset. Approaching things with that fresh, open perspective, like I'm seeing you for the first time, how does that help with those learning plateaus?
Well, when we get stuck, it's often because we're holding on to old ways of thinking or doing things. The beginner's mindset helps us let go of those preconceived notions and be open to new approaches and perspectives.
So instead of getting frustrated that something isn't working, I should step back and see if there's a different way to do it.
Exactly. The beginner's mindset encourages experimentation and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. Just stay curious, ask questions, and be open to trying new things.
This is so helpful. But let's be realistic, life is busy. How do I actually find the time to learn new things when I'm juggling a million other things?
That's the age-old question, right? It really comes down to making deliberate choices and sometimes, yes, making sacrifices.
Sacrifices. Okay, that doesn't sound quite as fun as interleaving and spaced repetition.
I know, but think about it this way. Anything worthwhile usually requires some level of sacrifice, right? And learning new skills, investing in yourself, that's definitely worthwhile.
Okay, you're right. But what kinds of sacrifices are we talking about? Like, do I have to quit my job and give up all my hobbies to make time for learning?
No. Nothing that drastic. It's more about making conscious choices and prioritizing. It might mean cutting back on certain activities like mindless scrolling on social media to free up some time.
Okay, so maybe instead of spending an hour watching funny cat videos, I could work on my coding project.
Exactly. Or it might mean saying no to certain social engagements or commitments to create that space for learning.
So it's about being intentional with my time and making sure I'm making choices that align with my learning goals.
Precisely. And the book gives this great example. It compares two people who want to build a website. One invests in courses, dedicates time to practice, and even cuts back on social activities to make it happen. The other person takes the quick and easy route, uses a free website builder, and invests minimal time and effort.
I wonder which person ends up with a better website and some actual valuable new skills.
Exactly. The one who is willing to make those short-term sacrifices reaps those long-term rewards.
True. And those sacrifices don't have to be forever, right?
Not at all. They're often temporary adjustments to help us achieve a specific goal.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So it's about making those conscious choices, prioritizing learning, and understanding that those sacrifices usually pay off in the long run. What else should I be thinking about when it comes to making those tough choices?
Another important thing to consider is opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah, like every choice we make means we're missing out on other opportunities. So if you choose to spend Saturday learning to code, the opportunity cost might be missing out on a day trip with friends.
Right. It's about weighing those options and deciding what's most important at that moment.
Exactly. Being aware of those opportunity costs can help us make more intentional decisions about how we spend our time. It doesn't mean we should never have fun or relax, just that we make those choices consciously in line with our goals.
This has given me so much to think about. Sacrifice isn't just about giving things up. It's about making choices that support my overall goals. Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, there's one last mindset shift that Hollins talks about that I find, kind of paradoxical.
You're talking about the idea of embracing the belief that we know nothing right.
Yes. It seems so counterintuitive, especially after all this insightful learning we've been discussing. Why embrace the idea of knowing nothing?
It might sound strange, but it can actually be really powerful. It's all about approaching learning with a sense of curiosity and openness. Like a beginner discovering something for the first time.
So it's like, instead of getting stuck on what I think I already know, I should try to see things with fresh eyes.
Exactly. Always be willing to learn. Acknowledge that there's always more to learn, no matter how much you already know.
That's a good reminder. But one thing that always holds me back is this idea of talent. Like I often think, I'm just not a math person, or I can never learn to paint. I'm not creative enough. It's like I've already decided what I'm capable of before I even try.
The myth of talent. The book actually talks about this a lot. We tend to view talent as something you're born with. You either have it or you don't. But Hollins argues that talent isn't fixed. It's something you can develop through practice, the right strategies, and just consistent effort.
Whoa, so instead of thinking I'm not talented enough, I should be thinking I haven't developed that skill yet.
Exactly. Often those people who we see as naturally talented have just had more exposure or opportunities to practice, or they've simply put in more time and effort.
Wow, that's actually really encouraging. It means that I can learn anything, I just need the right approach and the willingness to put in the work.
That's the spirit. And there are so many inspiring stories out there, people who've achieved amazing things, not because of some magical talent, but because of their dedication and hard work.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. But let's be real, learning new things can be hard. Even with the best strategies and the right mindset, there will be times when I get frustrated and just want to give up. How do I stay resilient and keep going?
It's true. Learning is a journey with its ups and downs. The key is to develop the resilience to navigate those challenges. And one way to do that is to focus on celebrating those small wins, those little victories along the way. Don't get caught up in how much further you have to go. Celebrate how far you've come.
So instead of getting down on myself because I haven't mastered the entire skill yet, I should acknowledge and celebrate those smaller achievements, like learning a new chord on the guitar or finally figuring out how to conjugate verbs in a new language.
Exactly. Those small wins are so important for staying motivated, especially when you're feeling discouraged. And another thing that can help is reframing setbacks as opportunities for learning.
Oh, that's a good one. Instead of viewing a mistake as a failure, I should see it as a chance to learn and grow. It's like that saying, I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work.
Yes. Mistakes are an inevitable part of learning, and honestly, they can be our best teachers. When you analyze your mistakes, figure out what went wrong, and adjust your approach, you're actually accelerating your learning.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try to remember that the next time I mess up. But what about those times when I'm just feeling completely overwhelmed? Like I'm drowning in information. What should I do then?
When you're feeling overwhelmed, sometimes it helps to go back to basics. Even if you think you've already mastered those fundamental concepts, revisiting them can help you feel more grounded and clear your head.
It's like hitting the reset button, making sure I've got a solid foundation before moving on.
Exactly. Sometimes we get overwhelmed because we've missed a key concept or developed bad habits along the way. Going back to basics can help you fill in those gaps.
That makes a lot of sense. But what if going back to basics isn't enough? Like what if I'm still stuck?
Well, when that happens, it can be super helpful to get feedback from others. Remember those mentors and communities we talked about earlier? They can provide a fresh perspective and help you see things you might be missing.
Oh, yeah. It's like having a guide to help navigate those tricky parts of the learning process.
Precisely. Sometimes we're just too close to the problem to see it clearly. Feedback from others can help us break through those sticking points and see things in a new way.
This has been such an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about how to approach learning in a more effective and enjoyable way.
We've covered a lot of ground, but I think the most important takeaway is this. Anyone can learn anything. It's not about some innate talent, it's about using the right strategies and having the right mindset.
And we don't have to do it alone. We've got resources like this book, mentors, communities, and even each other to help us along the way.
So if you've been thinking about learning something new, don't wait. Take that first step, embrace the challenge, and start learning today.
There's a whole world of amazing things out there just waiting to be discovered. You've got this. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the science of rapid skill acquisition.
Happy learning, everyone!